Myself is Dr. Peenal Shah. Today I am taking talk on tuberculosis. So we will discuss this topic under the following headings. First of all, we will see the introduction, followed by epidemiology, then etiopathogenesis, different types of tuberculosis, clinical features and diagnosis and summary. So first of all, the introduction. As we all know, the tuberculosis is the most prevalent infection of the human being and contribute to illness and death around the world. It is usually spread by inhaling the tiny droplet of saliva of cough and sneeze of the infected person. It is slowly spreading chronic granulomatous bacterial infection characterized by a gradual weight loss. And it leads to serious chronic pulmonary and systemic disease caused most often by a Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So tuberculous bacilli are diagnosed by a scientist. His name is Robert Koch. He has diagnosed these bacilli. They are the long, slender, rod-shaped bacilli. Now coming to the epidemiology. Up to the 1950, the tuberculosis was the most prevalent disease. After the discovery of the streptomycin, the tuberculosis has been in control and the trend has declined. But it again resurged after the 1980 because of the HIV infection. Right now, according to the WHO, it affects the more than billions of the individual with 8.7 million new cases and 1.4 million deaths per year. It usually flourishes with the poverty and overcrowding. Now coming to the etiology, tuberculosis is most often caused by a Mycobacterium tuberculi, and other mycobacteria which cause tuberculosis are Mycobacterium bovis, Africanum, Microti and Cannati. They are the long slender rods. They usually resemble like a fungus, so that's why it is known as a mycobacteria. The meaning of mycobacteria means fungus-like bacteria. What are the characteristics of this mycobacteria? These Mycobacterium tuberculosis are usually spread by the air, while Mycobacterium bovis is spread by the milk. They are the aerobic, non-spore forming and non-motile bacilli, and they usually not produce any kind of toxins. But these bacteria have a characteristic mycolic acid in their bacterial wall which will resistant to acid and alcohol. So they are also known as acid-fast bacilli. Mycobacterium avium and Mycobacterium intracellular, they are having a very low virulence. It usually affects in a patients with an immunocompromised status and leads to atypical tuberculosis. Now coming to the mode of transmission. It is the most prevalent disease in our country. Mycobacterium tuberculosis is transmitted by the inhalation of the infected droplet of a cough or sneeze into the air by a patient, while Mycobacterium bovis is transmitted by the milk from the deceased cow and first produce intestinal or tonsillar lesion. Third route is the inoculation of the skin from the infected post-mortem tissue. That is a very rare route of transmission. And the fourth is the transplanted route. That is also very rare. So this figure depicts how the one infected person transmits infection to the another person via aerosols. What are the risk factors for this development of tuberculosis? It depends upon the infectiousness of the person with tuberculosis disease, the environment in which the exposure occurs, the time or length of the exposure, the virulence of the tuberculosis bacilli, and definitely the immune status of the exposed individual. Now we will look into detail what is the pathogenesis of this tuberculosis bacilli and what is the pathogenesis of different types of tuberculosis. So first we will see how the granuloma is formed in case of tuberculosis. So basic pathogenesis is because of the hypersensitivity or allergy that plays a major role in development of the tuberculosis. This tuberculous bacilli, as I have already said, it will not produce any kind of toxins. The tissue change occurs as a host response to organism, that is because of the cell-mediated hypersensitivity reaction. So what happened? First of all, when this mycobacteria will go into the lung, and which are the key cells, key soldiers of our lung? They are the alveolar macrophages. So this alveolar macrophage, they will engulf this mycobacteria, and these mycobacteria start replicating inside the macrophages. But normally what happens, this macrophage will destroy all the bacteria and viruses. But this mycobacteria, they will inhibit the maturation of phagolysosome. The phagolysosome formation will not occur. So this macrophage are not able to kill these bacteria, and they will proliferate inside the alveolar macrophages, and ultimately there is a seeding of bacteria into the blood that leads to bacteremia. And this bacteremia, the person would have just a flu-like syndrome like a mild fever, body ache, myalgia. After 3 weeks, there is a generation of cell-mediated immune response. So CD4 plus T cells are activated, and these cell-mediated CD4 plus T cells, they will lead to macrophage activation and killing of bacteria, and which ultimately leads to granuloma formation. So we will see in the detail how this occurs. First of all, these are the mycobacteria. They are having a special mannose on their cell wall. So this mannose, they will bind to the mannose receptor on alveolar macrophage, and they will go inside the alveolar macrophage. Once they will go inside the alveolar macrophage, natural mechanism is there is a phagolysosome formation. So this is a phagocytosis of mycobacteria, and these are the lysosomes. So normally there should be phagolysosome formation and killing of bacteria. But these bacteria produce a certain changes. So ultimately there is a lack of phagolysosome formation. It produces a certain kind of manipulation. So it leads to lack of acidic pH, ineffective phagolysosome formation, and maturation arrest. So ultimately there is no phagolysosome formation, and these bacteria are proliferate inside the alveolar macrophage. Now they are relaxed. There is no one to kill them inside the macrophage, so they will start proliferating inside the alveolar macrophage. So after that, there is a burst open of this alveolar macrophage, and this bacteria will seed into the blood and produce a bacteremia and flu-like syndrome. But this is occur up to the 3 weeks. But after 3 weeks, now this alveolar macrophage, they are having this mycobacterial antigen inside their cell wall. So now they become antigen presenting cell. They will go to the regional lymph node and present this antigen to the CD4 plus T cells. So these are the macrophage having a class 2 MHC molecule. So class 2 is always represent to the CD4 plus T cell. And they will represent this antigen to the CD4 plus T cells, and there is a generation of cell-mediated reaction. The T cells are activated. This macrophage will secrete interleukin 12, and they will secrete more and more T cells. CD4 plus T cell response is activated, which ultimately leads to Th1 cell proliferation. Now this Th1 cell, they release interferon gamma. And this interferon gamma is a key chemokine which leads to activation of this alveolar macrophage. So how it will activate the alveolar macrophage? This alveolar macrophage will secrete a various cytokines like TNF alpha and chemokines, and it also leads to nitrous oxide proliferation and free radical formation. So this both leads to activation of macrophage, and their bactericidal activity will be resumed. And this activated macrophage will leads to release of TNF alpha and chemokine, which ultimately leads to more and more monocyte recruitment. So this more and more monocyte will be recruited at the site of inflammation from the blood, and there is a formation of granuloma. So we can see in this slide there is a formation of granuloma, in which there is a center, there is this necrotic material surrounded by these macrophages, and surrounded by the various inflammatory cells, predominantly lymphocyte and plasma cells. And these macrophages, because of the effect of this TNF alpha, they are converted into special type of cells. They are known as epithelioid cells. They are look like epithelial cells, so they are known as epithelioid cells. And they will wall off this bacteria. So there is a war start between the bacteria and these macrophages, and they fight with each other. So there is a killing of this bacteria, the very much destruction, and ultimately the more and more fatty acids will be generated. So this necrosis will appear more cheesy. So it looks like a cheese, having more fatty acid. So it is known as a caseous necrotic material. So this is a caseous necrotic material surrounded by epithelioid cell, granuloma, and various inflammatory cells. So this is a summarizing steps in pathogenesis of tuberculosis, in which first there is exposure to the bacteria, aerosolization of droplet of bacteria. Now the bacteria are being inhaled and they will reach into the lung, and this bacteria will multiply in macrophage, and there is a formation of granuloma. While in 50% of cases there is no infection. If person is having a very good immunity, there will be no infection. But in rest of cases this process will occur. Now this granulomatous lesion, in 90% of cases it will become calcified, and ultimately it will become calcified. If the person is having a very low immunity, it will leads to progressive primary tuberculosis. So if we see the morphology of the granuloma, there is a rounded outline having a central caseous necrosis, transformed macrophage, they are called epithelioid cells, surrounded by lymphocyte, plasma cells, fibroblast, and there is a characteristic giant cell formation. These epithelioid cells, they coalesce with each other and form a giant cells, and they have a nuclei which are situated periphery. So in this slide we can see the structure of granuloma, in which we can see these are the all epithelioid cells surrounded by the various inflammatory cells. Includes the epithelioid cells, macrophage. This is the wall up by lymphocyte and plasma cell, and this is a classical histiocytic giant cell, that is a Langerhans type of giant cell, in which nuclei are situated periphery. Now coming to what happens further to the granuloma, this caseous material may undergo liquefaction and extend into the surroundings of tissue and discharging its content into the surface, and this is called a cold abscess. Why it is called cold abscess? Because there is no pus formation, so it is known as a cold abscess. In tuberculosis of the tissue like bones, joints, lymph nodes and epididymis, they form a sinus tract in which is lined by a granulation tissue. Now coming to the types of tuberculosis, one is a primary tuberculosis and another is a secondary tuberculosis. So what is primary tuberculosis? It occurs in the non-immunized, unexposed individual, means usually occurs in the children. It is a self-limited disease and always begin in the lung, almost always begin in the lung, and it leads to formation of primary complex or a bone complex. So inhaled bacilli, they will implant into the distal airspace of the lower part of upper lobe or upper part of lower lobe, usually close to the pleura. It forms around 1 to 1.5 cm area of grayish white inflammatory consolidation, that is known as a bone focus or primary tuberculosis. And these tuberculous bacilli also drain into the regional lymph node, which often caseate. This combination of lung lesion along with the regional lymph node, that is both known as a Ghon's complex. And this Ghon's complex undergo progressive fibrosis and produce a radiologically detectable calcification, that is known as a Ranke complex. So this is the entry of the tuberculous bacilli, and they will go into the lower part of upper lobe and upper part of lower lobe, and there is a formation of Ghon complex along with the regional lymph node involvement. So both combinedly known as a Ghon's complex. So initially when this tuberculous bacilli come, there is a formation of granuloma, and multiple microscopic granuloma form a Ghon's focus. So this is a photograph which shows a gone focus, and it is residing in the lower part of upper lobe or upper part of lower lobe along with the regional lymph node involvement. So both combined known as a Ghon's complex. Now what happens after the primary tuberculosis? Usually in 90% of cases it is healed by a fibrosis or undergo calcification or ossification. But if person is having a very low immunity, it will go into the progressive primary tuberculosis. This primary focus is lung in continue to grow and caseation material disseminate through the bronchi in other part of lung. It is known as a progressive primary tuberculosis. And second, when the bacilli enter into the blood circulation through the erosion of blood vessel and spread to the various organs like liver, spleen, kidney, brain or bone marrow, it is known as a miliary tuberculosis. So either this lesion will be healed and bacilli will be dead. So it is a healed primary tuberculosis. Second route, the bacilli become dormant. They are not healed, but now they become dormant. They will not infect or produce any symptom. And third route, they will start the multiplying. So if they multiply, it produces a progressive primary tuberculosis. So what happens in progressive primary tuberculosis? This bacteria will spread to the other part of the lung and produce a tuberculous bronchopneumonia. Or it may spread through the other organ through the hematogenous spread, like include liver or kidney, leads to miliary tuberculosis. So what is the sequelae of primary complex? In 90% cases it is healed by fibrosis, or it may lead to progressive primary disease or may lead to miliary tuberculosis. Now coming to the secondary type of tuberculosis. It occurs post-primary in immunized individual. Primary, the persons are not immunized, so it occurs usually in children and non-immunized individual. But post-primary occurs the person who is already having a immunity to this tuberculous bacilli. It occurs either the reactivation of primary focus, like it is a immunized, so person might have some kind of infection in their childhood, so it is either reactivation of that foci, or second route there is a reinfection of the primary focus, or there is a large inoculum by a virulent bacilli. Now this time this tuberculous bacilli will change their location. In case of primary tuberculosis, they were located in the distal part of the lung, the lower part of upper lobe and upper part of lower lobe. But this time in case of secondary tuberculosis, they will go into the apical part of the lung. It involves both apex of the lung. Why the apical portion? Because these are the aerobic bacilli and they require more oxygen for proliferation. There is a high oxygenation in apical pleura which leads to growth of this bacteria. So because the person is this time having a pre-existence hypersensitivity reaction, so this bacilli elicit a prompt market tissue response. So they try to wall off this lesion. And as a result, there is a less regional lymph node involvement. These bacteria now, they will not go to lymph node. This macrophage, they will wall off the bacteria in the apical pleura, and there is a cavitation formation occurs in a secondary form. So in case of secondary tuberculosis, apical pleura is involved and usually cavitation formation. So we have seen the primary tuberculosis, which are the dead bacteria or dormant bacteria. So this either reactivation and reinfection leads to secondary type of tuberculosis, and this time they involve the apical portion of the pleura and usually cavitary formation. So in this figure, in this slide we can see there is a cavitation, small focus of consolidation in the apical pleura. The foci are sharply circumscribed, they are greyish white to yellow areas and variable amount of central caseation necrosis. We can see the multiple cavitation. What happens after the secondary tuberculosis? So if person will take antibiotic, it is usually healed by fibrous scarring and calcification. But if person still having a very low immunity, it leads to progressive secondary tuberculosis. So in case of progressive secondary tuberculosis, there is a fibrocaseous tuberculosis, tuberculous caseous pneumonia, miliary tuberculosis and tuberculous empyema. So this is a secondary tuberculosis. So if it involves the overlying pleura, it is known as a tuberculous empyema. If it leads to hematogenous spread to other organs like liver, spleen, kidney, so it is known as a miliary tuberculosis. If it involves, it proliferates inside the apical pleura and along with the areas of fibrosis, it is known as a fibrocaseous tuberculosis. And if it involves the other part of the lung and produce a pneumonia, it is known as a tuberculous bronchopneumonia. So what is a fibrocaseous tuberculosis? The original area of tuberculous pneumonia undergoes a peripheral healing with massive central caseation. So it is known as a fibrosis and caseous. So fibrocaseous tuberculosis. So it either could be cavitatory or non-cavitatory, and it break into the bronchus from a cavity leads to open cox or open fibrocaseous tuberculosis, and soft caseous lesion produce a non-cavitatory lesion that known as a chronic fibrocaseous tuberculosis. So we can see these are the non-cavitatory lesion and these are the cavitatory lesions occurs in case of fibrocaseous tuberculosis. So in this slide we can see there is a large cavity formation in case of tuberculous infection with this type of necrotic material, that is a classical caseous necrotic material, and cavitary tuberculosis is usually seen in reactivation of tuberculosis and located into the apical pleura. So if we discriminate between the primary and secondary tuberculosis, in case of primary tuberculosis, the bone focus will be formed which are located at the lower part of upper lobe or upper part of lower lobe with the formation of granuloma. Granuloma is always a microscopic structure, and multiple granuloma, they coalesce with each other and form a macroscopic small area of consolidation. While in case of secondary tuberculosis, usually involve the apical pleura and produce a cavity. Now what is the complication of this cavitary tuberculosis? Aneurysm of patent artery crossing the cavitary lesion leads to hemoptysis. It will extend into the pleura, leads to bronchopulmonary fistula. If it involves the overlying pleura, it leads to tuberculous empyema, and thickened pleura form the adhesion of the parietal pleura. The second condition occurs, that is a tuberculous caseous pneumonia, in which this cavitary lesion spreads, this tuberculous bacilli spread to the other part of the lung parenchyma and produces this patchy consolidation, that is known as a tuberculous caseous pneumonia. On histological examination, we can see there is an exudative type of inflammation. We can see the numerous neutrophil lymphocytes along with the area of caseous necrosis in case of tuberculous caseous pneumonia. When there is an infection which spread via the hematogenous route, in the lung there are small tiny microscopic foci of yellowish white consolidation scattered throughout the lung parenchyma. So it is known as a miliary tuberculosis. This word miliary is derived from its resemblance to the foci of millet seeds. And it may lead to only the lung involvement, so it is known as a miliary pulmonary disease. So miliary lesions may expand and coalesce to yield almost total consolidation of large region or whole lobe of the lung. They also cause the pleural effusion, empyema, and obliterative fibrous pleuritis. So when there is a systemic involvement, this infective foci in lung seeds into pulmonary venous return to heart, and organisms subsequently disseminate through the systemic arterial system. Almost every organ in body can be seeded, and miliary tuberculosis most prominently involve the liver, bone marrow, spleen, adrenal, meninges, kidney, fallopian tube, and epididymis. So this is a picture which shows, we can see these are the tiny structures. This is known as a miliary tuberculosis. It occurs because of the hematogenous spread, and we can see these are the very tiny structures, and it resembles a millet seed. So this is also a miliary tuberculosis. We can see these are the very tiny structures. This is a miliary tuberculosis. On histological examination, the same. There is a well-formed granuloma. We can see the multiple well-formed granuloma in this slide. So this is a granuloma which shows a classical caseous necrosis along with this palisaded epithelioid cells with various inflammatory cells. This is a picture showing a Langerhans type of giant cell in which it is a classical horseshoe shape in which we can see like this nuclei are peripherally situated horseshoe shape. So it is known as a Langerhans giant cell. Now which are the extrapulmonary sites for tuberculosis? In this tissue or organs seeded hematogenously. The commonly involved organs are the tuberculous lymphadenitis. Lymph node are the most common organ which are involved by tuberculosis. Second is the intestinal tuberculosis. Intestinal tuberculosis could be primary or it could be secondary. Primary occurs in case of Mycobacterium bovis because of the ingestion of the infected milk from the cow. Then it involves the meninges, leads to tuberculous meningitis. Kidney involvement leads to renal tuberculosis. Adrenal might be involved, leads to Addison's disease. It involves the bones and produces osteomyelitis. It involves the vertebrae, produces Port's disease, and fallopian tube are also involved, which leads to salpingitis. In this picture, we can see this is a photograph of the Port's disease. This is a spine involvement in case of tuberculosis. This is a tuberculous meningitis. This meninges shows a yellowish white flecks because of the tuberculous meningitis. What is the spread of tuberculosis? It is usually local spread, take place by macrophage carrying the bacilli into surrounding tissue. The second most common is a lymphatic spread, primarily the infection of lymphoid tissue resulting in lymphadenitis, and it is usually seen in childhood infection. Usually children are presented with having a multiple matted lymph node having a tuberculous infection. And hematogenous spread leads to miliary type of tuberculosis. If we look at the clinical symptoms, mainly because of the effect of the cytokines, there is a central effect leads to appetite loss and fatigue and loss of weight. So appetite loss leads to this to be patient having a classical history of weight loss along with the evening rise fever. Because of the lung involvement, patient would have a chest pain with a productive sputum, and skin there is a night sweats and pallor. How we will diagnose this tuberculosis? So clinically, there is a classically patient would have a evening rise fever with anorexia and weight loss. For diagnosis, the routine apart from the routine hematological investigation, the chest X-ray is the most important to diagnose the tuberculosis. Then Zell-Nielsen stain on the sputum. Then culture is the most sensitive and specific test and usually occurs in a conventional Lowenstein-Jensen media. This tuberculous bacilli are very slow growers, so require 3 to 6 weeks for the proliferation. Polymerase chain reaction, it is a very sensitive and specific method, and Montague's test. So this is a chest X-ray. We can see these areas of consolidation. And in this chest X-ray, we can see these are the multiple tiny white nodules throughout the lung parenchyma. And this is the HRCT of the lung. We can see these are the multiple tiny white nodules. This is a case of miliary tuberculosis. This is a AFP stain on sputum. We can see this is actually HNE slide. Histopathology slide in which the AFB stain is performed. We can see these are the multiple rod-shaped eosinophilic tuberculous bacteria. This is a fluorescent stain dye on sputum. It is a Oramine dye. We can see these are the fluorescently stained tuberculous bacilli. This is the Algae media. These are the colonies of Mycobacteria. Montague's test. The infection of tuberculous bacteria leads to a delayed hypersensitivity reaction that is detected by Montague's test. It is about after 2 to 4 weeks of infection, this intracutaneous injection of purified protein derivatives of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis induces a visible palpable induration, and that will reach into the peak in 48 to 72 hours, but it will not differentiate between infection and disease. There are certain conditions which leads to false negative reaction, which includes a viral infection, sarcoidosis, malnutrition, Hodgkin's disease, immunosuppression, and overwhelming active tuberculosis. and false positive occurs because of the atypical mycobacteria. So in this we can see there is an inoculation of PPD by subcutaneous injection, and the results should be readable after 72 hours, and we have to measure the induration size. So if it is induration less than 5 millimeter, there is a no exposure. If it is between 5 to 9 millimeter, it could be due to either atypical bacteria or BCG vaccination. And if it is more than 10 millimeter, with the symptoms of tuberculosis, it is interpreted as a tuberculous disease. So this is the induration which form after the 72 hours, 2 hours. So concluding my talk, when this tuberculous bacilli, they will enter into the lung, it will go into the alveolar macrophage, and ultimately on case of there is a formation of primary complex, it involves the lower part of upper lobe or upper part of lower lobe. It is also known as a Ghon focus, along with this regional lymph node involvement. So both together known as a primary complex or Ghon complex. In 90% of cases, it is self-healing, but it may remain latent for a while. If person is having a very low immunity, it will progress into progressive primary tuberculosis, in which they produce a tuberculous bronchopneumonia, or it may spread to the other organs like liver and kidney and produce a miliary tuberculosis. When this person is either re-exposed, or when in adult type they would have a low immunity, so either reinfection or reactivation of this primary tuberculosis, it leads to secondary type of tuberculosis, in which there is a, now the location is changed, in which there is a location into the apical pleura, there is a more and more destruction, tissue destruction and cavity formation. It also heal by fibrosis or might go into the progressive secondary tuberculosis, which leads to hematogenous dissemination and produce a miliary tuberculosis, or may leads to tuberculous bronchopneumonia, fibrocaseous type of tuberculosis, or tuberculous empyema. Thank you.